Let's get more now from Garret Martin. He's a lecturer at American University and the editor-at-large at the European Institute. Garret, this certainly seems like a big deal. Is it as significant as it sounds?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on, Asieh. I think on paper, it can certainly be a very meaningful agreement. I think, as was mentioned, the size of the trade between China and the EU is substantial. So I think on an economic perspective, it's important in itself. It's particularly important, I would say, also as an answer to the economic shocks caused by the pandemic. So I think this could be important to facilitate recovery down the line. But I think it's also potentially an important agreement also because of the geopolitical dimension, with the new Biden administration coming in and trying to understand what its China policy and how it will also try to revitalize relations with Europe. I think that deal on paper could be very significant.
So how do you think this will play out? I mean, you bring up a good point. How will this play out in the United States with the incoming Biden administration at a time, we should say, China has faced a lot of criticism here by the Trump administration from its handling of the COVID-19 pandemic, Hong Kong, human rights issues. So how is this going to play out?
Well, I think you could see it from two possible outcomes. I think it's a given that the Biden administration, I think, will take a fairly strong line towards China for a variety of reasons. But I think one of the most important is that it's one subject where there is bipartisan agreement in the United States, and there's not agreement on many other issues. However, I could see two options. One is that the Biden administration will be very annoyed by the fact that Europe has signed a deal just before the inauguration, and therefore that could complicate the dialogue that has been building up between the EU and the United States. Conversely, I think the Biden administration could view it as, okay, this is Europe is affirming itself. It has its own approach towards China. It won't be identical to the American approach, but we have to respect those differences. And the overall strategy, the overall goal of a transatlantic common approach to China remains.
So this agreement, from what I understand, doesn't actually come into effect until 2022, Garret. A lot can happen until then. Do you foresee any hurdles that could derail it as the two sides work on the finishing touches?
Yes, you're absolutely right. I mean, 2022 is the hopeful timeline for ratification, but trade agreements, I think, invariably invite a lot of scrutiny. I think they invite a lot of scrutiny normally, but I would say particularly in this context. Keep in mind also that the European Parliament has to approve it, and the European Parliament, I think, has not been shy in being very vocal about certain key red lines, in particular over issues of labor rights and human rights. So if some of the elements are not to its liking, we could expect a prolonged battle for ratification. I think my speculation or my guess also from the EU's perspective is that this delay, this longer period, will allow it some time to see, is China actually abiding by some of the commitments? It's specifically the commitment or the promise that China has made, supposedly, to sign up to the ILO's language on labor rights. So this waiting time can give a bit of a sense or an indication to Europe about the extent to which China will comply with its promises.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you, Garret Martin.